Science out there. Ask them. The DAs have a big problem with that because when they close at the end of the case, they've got to explain to the jury this is not like CSI or, NSI or Cops or whatever most favorite show on TV is. It's just not that way.
Well, people research stuff and then they get a cognitive bias and they think they know something because they've read it or seen.
They research stuff
on a little
on the internet. That's not research. That's reading somebody else's.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, that's not real research.
Yeah, that's true. It can be just reading what somebody else regurgitated.
I mean, you look at Wikipedia. What do you want to write? You can put anything you want in Wikipedia.
Yeah, and people can edit.
And our kids think that's the end all.
Well, the thing is that people don't check multiple sources. They find what they want to believe, and then But the problem I've always had with those shows, and I've been involved with a couple things, is there's the people at emergency services, with rare exception, are not that glamorous.
Everyday working people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand this whole mindset where it's supermodels. They were working on, they were doing this thing, and they were doing somebody. They got somebody who was going to be me 20 years ago. And I met him, and I said, "Who's this guy?" I said, "He's going to be you 20 years ago." I said, "And for the past 20 years, I just let people beat me in the face with sticks. That's not what I look like." Yeah. I said, "And not to mention, this guy's about a half a pound of keys short of where he needs to be if he wants to play the part."
Hollywood. The Hollywood presentation of the job is nothing like it really is. Nothing.
It's more sanitized. It's cleaner. I think
it's very much less emotional.
And it dehumanizes it. What I was going to say.
Like I said, you see people at their best and their worst all in the same hour because they're bouncing up and down off the walls when they're going through something like that.
Was there anybody at the department that was just so much better at dealing with families when they were in a bad situation that you would just kind of step back and let them do it if you could get away with it? Because that doesn't seem to me like...
Nah, if I was dealing with it, I would deal with it. And I was able to... I think I was able to handle the family's situation pretty good.
But given a choice, did you prefer not to?
No, I enjoyed it. That was part of the job. I mean, it's... I've been at the people's houses, and you got some people that, like, for instance, you had some people that wouldn't want to talk to a white cop or a black cop, and vice versa, and it didn't matter because you had black people that wouldn't talk to black, and it just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Once you got past we're here to do our job together, I had a lady one day say, "Mister, I never had the police treat me like you treat me." I mean, like, she was the kid's mom. She didn't do anything wrong. The kid didn't do anything wrong.
Well, we get that a lot, too, because people will talk to us differently because they don't feel like they're going to be prosecuted for something. They don't feel like they're going to be, they're not being scrutinized or accused of anything. They're just being asked questions. Yeah. How you said we have housing for 200 bodies, 100 occupied.
I would say at least 200. It depends how closely you want to stack them.
Right, and then does the city still have a pauper's field?
It still exists. They don't use it anymore. When I left, they had switched over to do. They cremated everybody after they did what they had to do and couldn't find anybody, or the family declined to act, and they would cremate the bodies.
What do they do with the ashes?
Ultimately, about once every little bit, when they get enough together, they bury them in an unmarked grave.
Okay. And when they hold evidence for a case, like I see, were you as part of your job ever involved in exhuming a body?
Yes.
I've done cemetery work. I've never done. Is that as potentially horrible as it seems? It's just something unnerving about it. Something unnatural.
If the cemetery people and the funeral director did their job right, it's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
If they're sloppy and
take shortcuts,
it can be a real mess.
Yeah, water gets in,
but then it's like we deal with bodies that have been in the Schuylkill River or the Delaware for months and years sometimes.
Why don't they, whenever there's a case that's suspicious, you see exhuming bodies, and I've always wondered, if there's any suspicion, why don't they just automatically take hair, nails, blood, a bunch of pictures, put them in a box on a shelf, and just throw it away in 5 years, instead of having the potential of having to exhume a body, because that's a lot of paperwork and permissions and everything else, right?
It's not the paperwork battle's not so bad. The body, it's the interpretation of what's there, because the body goes through certain changes. It's laying in the ground. It's been embalmed, so it's been bombarded with all these chemicals. So toxicology is pretty much impossible to do now. And you're just going to get out and, garbage in, garbage out, the old accounting term.
Right.
If you mess it up, there's nothing like somebody who's, when they first die, that everything's handled in a controlled environment. And sometimes it's not.
It's completely contaminated.
And that's why you have, you get people that are, like say a fire scene. You're in the fire service. A lot of times, you put the fire out, and then you go in and you'll find the victim there. It was hiding under the bed or in the closet or something.
Right.
I mean, no matter how much the guys try to get in there, sometimes you just can't do it, or you have an explosion, and you get all that wash down. There's you can't check that person for accelerants or stuff like that. Where they or if they were making a bomb in there. It's a little bit unnerving. You get a body in the morgue and you find a stick of dynamite on it. Oh, yeah. Everything that can happen will happen. You know that.
So you had a body, you found a stick of dynamite still on it?
Yep.
Was it dry or wet? Dynamite's worse.
I went the other way. It was fresh dynamite. I mean, whatever you would call it, dry or wet. I would assume that's dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy killed his wife and his son and killed himself, and he was wired to go up. And the guys at the scene didn't frisk him too well or pat him down, and he came into the morgue with dynamite strapped to him, all ready to go. It was funny because the week before I went to the bomb school up here in Montgomery County, and they said, "Well, you know about that?" I said, "Yeah, I know enough to get out of here."
Yes, you took the whole class and I just turned and ran.
Yeah, well, I'm not the bomb guy.
I
got a EOD section for that.
It's funny, you go and you take all this training and to do different things or recognize different things, and what you learn a lot of is
what you don't know.
What you don't know and what you need to run away from. There should be a class in running away dignified from things you don't know or understand.
Well, it was, they said, because I got some snickers from the administrative people in our office who had no idea anything we did. All they knew was just counting paper clips and ordering pencils. And, they go, "What do you have to go to this bomb thing for?" And then like 3 or 4 days later, the guy shows up with a stick on him. And then I handled the move thing out there. Move 2, I call it.
Move 2, yeah, not Powelton.
No, the second one where they all got killed. Yeah, that was mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had my hands full with that one.
That went on for a while.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was as they say, Charlie Foxtrot.
Okay. It's funny, like you talk about, exiting something that is beyond your scope, and it's, I don't know how many times I've said over the years, and it's a running joke, you get something that's getting way out of control. It's like it's from Blazing Saddles, and now for my impression of Jesse Owens, and I'm not trying to figure. I took a course a week ago that had a couple slides up there. This is real.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah, but you got to do it. But it's crazy. It really is.
When you were you married when you were
towards the end, yes.
Did you bring it home at all, or you had to?
I met her on the job. She was a cop. That's allowed.
Okay,
that's allowed.
Well, when you work for the medical examiner, you say that's how you met your wife. Did you? Several things flipped through my mind.
Okay,
right there. I was kidding the cop, but it wasn't. It's still there.
It was. What can I say? You know, where else do you spend all your waking time?
Right.
On the job.
Well, what do you think is if you could send a message to people about your job and the importance of it and the value of it? What would you say to them?
I hope they never have to knock on your door. You never wanted us to knock on your door, because it was like I said, horrible news.
I've told people that before about I've said I hope we never meet.
Meet you under. I always give you to meet you under better circumstances. Well, it doesn't get any more raw than what we dealt with.
I went in and do an interview on, I guess it was last year, and I went into a barbershop to interview a guy, and I wanted to talk to the guy. It was busy. The other guy said, "I seen you somewhere," and I said, "Yeah, probably not." And I sat down. I was reading a magazine. He says, "No, I've seen you somewhere," and he said, "Don't remember where." I said, "Do you remember what the context was?" And he said, "I remember it's not good if you show up." That's not good. It's not like I'm the angel of death. But
yeah. Well, it's
well, but I mean, you by nature, when you show up, it's to do a particular job. Did you have at that time marked or unmarked vehicles in the Department for Transport?
You mean the wagons?
Yeah.
They were always marked. I mean, the cars we had were always unmarked. The cars we used were unmarked.
But the wagons were always marked.
Oh yeah, big letters, medical examiner. Yeah.
See, because out here I see sometimes they're unmarked now. But because how do you, when you're driving that van, it's bad enough even if you're in an ambulance. But when you're driving that van, how do you go to lunch anywhere?
That's on them.
Yeah, but nobody wants you in their parking lot.
Well, I could tell you a story.
Tell it.
We had a crew coming back on New Year's Day. They picked up a decomposed body in Center City, Philadelphia. All the marked vehicles were down mechanical. Imagine that. So they borrowed a plain old, if you remember the yellow city trucks, just said City of Philadelphia on the side.
Yeah.
So they had this decomposed body in the back of this plain old yellow panel truck. Well, they decided that they were going to stop at Broad Street and watch the parade. And they left this decomposed body in the back of the truck. John Citizen goes by and smells it, and he's freaking out. It smells horrible. He opens it up, and he sees this decomposed body laying half wrapped up in a bag, and he flips out. Well, needless to say, there's heavy police presence there, and all of a sudden, it was like, what is going on? And then they called us. I said, well, that's our truck, and they're out there somewhere. Well, they're not here. We need a supervisor. Well, I'm not exactly their supervisor, but I'm the best thing he got. So I went down and adjusted it, and that was the end of that. But, that guy was like, I said, why didn't you lock the truck up?
Yeah.
Why did you have to stop? Those are the sort of things that happen.
But there's a lot lost to that little term you just said, adjusted it. I went down and adjusted it.
Well, I made everybody happy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean...
the police were happy that somebody took it out of their hands. The citizen was happy.
What year was this about?
God, 2000-something, 2002, 2005.
Okay, so stupidity is not a new thing.
No.
Just to confirm, it's always been here.
It's always been here.
Let's stop off and watch the parade. Don't lock the van. There's nothing there to steal. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and there what but by the time, and I told them, I said, but that's they got dealt with in house, and that was it.
Did you ever have to do anything involving you hear every now and then about in the funeral industry where a funeral home goes under or something like that, and there's it's one of those businesses when it goes out of business.
There's unfinished business on the premises.
There's unfinished business on the premises.
Yeah, that's happened. That's happened with funeral homes. It's happened. We had an old folks home, a nice old folks home, over in the right off Old York Road. We're out of business, so they had a morgue in the old folks home. But when they're out of business, they locked their morgue up, so nobody ever looked in it ever for about 5 or 6 years. Well, they sold it. And the new contractors in there, he's cutting everything. And he's telling the guys, yes, the morgue, they're going, ha, 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 ha. The typical morgue humor. And that was till they cut the lock off of what had been the refrigerator. And